Hello, welcome to the Horror House Podcast. I'm Dave.
I am Chris. We are two dudes that like to have a couple little sips and then talk about horror from movies to real life. And we hope you like to listen a little bit. This week we are talking about 2013's movie about giant mechs beating the shit out of some giant kaiju. We are talking about Spacific Rim. Dave.
I'm hard. Oh, wait, is that what you wanted? No, that's probably not what you wanted. You didn't want to know that. Dude, Specific Rimming, so good. Rabble, we've been pre-gaming and bullshitting for about an hour and a half now, so
this will be the longest episode maybe of all time, or either the shortest episode. It's in God's hands. It's in Jim Caviezel's hands.
It's Jim Caviezel. May he rise again to be restarted. Yeah. Thanks to the holy AutoZone.
There's a lot of inside jokes happening right now that we are considering doing some subscriber things and putting our pre-show up for those subscribers. If that's something that you would be interested in, let us know on any of our social medias. They're in the description. If you want the specifics on our social medias, wait till the end and then we'll tell them to you. So just enjoy the show from here till then.
Please, when you comment, tell us specifically what you like, what you don't like. We specifically want to know what you're thinking. So, exactly. That being said, let's get on to Specific Rimming. 3, 2, 1. Chris, man, I grew up when Robotech first came to the United States. Like, I couldn't even watch it on the regular because it was always on odd channels and odd times of day, and we were poor bastards. We couldn't really do cable, so
right.
I caught it when I could, and it was so cool. So the mech stuff was so cool. And then you had King Kong, you had Godzilla, were regulars on Sammy Terry on Saturday nights of WTTV4. And never in my wettest dreams did I ever imagine, like, you could smash them together like a fucking Reese's Pieces.
Yeah.
Like, you got some mech suits in my kaiju. Oh, well, you got kaiju in my mech suit. Well, let's do it.
Now, I liked Voltron as a kid, but I didn't watch a lot of it. I mean, I maybe did, but I mean, I was so young at that time. But that kind of had a similar thing. I don't remember the villains of Voltron though. Like, was he fighting monsters or other robots?
No, I think it was mostly like giant space monsters.
Okay.
Because they would fight for a while, and then they would always end it the same way, like the same exact fucking animation, not just like done the same. No, it's the same piece of fucking animation. He pulls out the fucking sword and cuts him in half.
Yeah. Reusing that? Why draw it again if it's the same?
Yeah, I'm there for it, man. I love the fucking Power Rangers or the Voltron.
The Voltron.
God, that's it. Show's over. I'm killing myself right now.
Okay.
I love Voltron. I really don't not like Power Rangers. It was just after my time.
You're right. No.
I have watched the new movie, and my understanding is that they're working on another new movie.
I think they're
although
rebooting
with so
it
many
again.
strikes in place. Yeah.
Now,
well, I kind of heard that it's going to be a softer reboot, so maybe they don't completely throw out like what has happened in the.
Yeah, I really liked the reboot too. I mean, I was like the ripe age for Power Rangers as a kid. But even looking beyond that, like, I mean, I was into that first era of it, and then they switched to like something else, and then I was phased out by that point. But looking at it now, it's kind of cool, like that when you get into the teenager and the acting kind of stuff, like that's cheesy as fucking shit. But if you look at the mech versus the monster stuff, that's very derivative and reminiscent of Godzilla. and it's cool just for that, because it is just dudes in these giant absurd suits, and it's cool just to see that kind of going on.
Yeah, I've got I've acquired the taste for the Power Rangers, so I'm just kidding when I say fuck them all. But yeah, the kaiju stuff and the there's an extra element I feel like with the Voltron and the Power Rangers and some of that shit, because you get like people stories. I have a hard time because the worst parts of the modern Godzilla movies has been like the people parts.
God, yes. That's really my problem with most kaiju kind of movies. I mean, probably a lot of people are that way. We want to see the fucking monsters, man. We want to see the fights or it destroying shit. Yeah. And then we're getting like these human stories. In some instances, it's all right. In some instances, it's overdone. And you're like, I know what you're doing, and you're just kind of padding your movie out between the big set pieces, right? And
if you destroy too many cities, how do you make the monster a good guy?
Right.
So
I mean, and plus, I mean, Specific Rim is another one of those things that owes a lot. And I do really love that, you know, I was looking at the credits as it was ending, and they had thanks for Ray Harryhausen, which was fucking cool. But then the director and co-writer of Godzilla, I guess you could say like the co-creator of Godzilla. I'm gonna say his name absolutely wrong, but where I've missed my notes here. Where are my notes at?
Where's my homies at?
Ishiru Honda. And just for them putting those two names in there, you know, I don't think Pacific Rim goes its own way with that. Obviously, with the CGI, it's not men in big suits. Although we'll come back to that later, maybe several times. But it still knows that if it wasn't for those, that it wouldn't be there. So that I thought was very cool of them to do that. Just a tip of the hat to the old guard, the creators, and I got a lot of that maybe got a whole half a point for me just seeing that. And one last thing as far as the credits go, have you seen the credits? Anything?
For
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rimming?
Yeah.
I might have zoned out a little bit.
Now towards the very end, it shows that for Ray Harryhausen and Ishiro Honda, but below that a little bit, there's thanks, and I didn't write them all down, but it's James Cameron, and then you'll never guess, David fucking Cronenberg, and I was so fascinated.
Oh,
I'm like, oh my god, I have to find out what he helped with. Like maybe Del Toro was like, I talked to Cronenberg about the physiology of these kaiju, and I'm like, that'd be so fucking cool. No, it wasn't. Del Toro.
Okay. What was it?
Del Toro, apparently they filmed a lot in Toronto, and Cronenberg helped him with his production crew and stuff like that. And that's yeah.
I mean, it's cool, but less cool.
Yeah, I was really hoping for like some juicy like nugget, like we really. And then I walked away just kind of whelmed. I'm like, God, I really would have loved.
Is there a worse emotion on the face of the earth than being?
I don't know. Because you're like, I can't be disappointed because but at the same time,
you didn't know it existed in the first place.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, what do you do with yourself now? And that's certainly what I felt. But there's the credits. We got those out of the way. Now let's talk about the movie.
Yeah. So we this is the Independence Day of kaiju movie.
Yes.
It's big budget. It's beautiful. It is it is heavily reliant on CG, but I think it's solid. And then it's got this that same theme of like, yeah, we're gonna have some internal rivalry, but at the end of the day, mankind has to like come together, and it really is a beautiful concept. Like
I don't
we need to
yeah, that took me out of it
aside.
almost immediately because I don't think that would ever happen. There would always be
I think a threat on this size.
No, fuck you. We'll figure it out. We don't need you. Fucking Canadians going off on their own like always.
I think a threat of this size could really bring society together, but you would still have your Ron Perlmans that are like, no, I'm out for my own and I'm selling like fucking kaiju parasites and bone powder to make, Chinese dick drugs,
I was very fascinated by his character because I mean, it's this giant kaiju is dead and he's like getting in there and getting shit out of it without like this world government thing like already.
Well, didn't they have a relationship? Didn't he have like some kind of agreement with the local authorities?
Oh, did he? I may have missed that then. Well,
I thought that was kind of mentioned. It kind of seemed like throwaway, but I think that's what they had. They had some kind of thing, and then they also tried to get there before like the authorities can recover and get there. So
I think the funniest part to me in the movie was after that big fight with the three Jaegers and when the two event first happened and they're done, Ron Perlman comes up with the map. He's like, the kaiju died here and we're gonna start our search here, pointing at the same spot twice. It's like, of course you would. What the fuck else are you gonna do?
He died here, but maybe his body is 100 miles away. So,
yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if it was on purpose, but it was a little bit ridiculous, and I loved it for it.
Oh man, Charlie Day. Let's talk Charlie Day.
I love Charlie Day. So that was I knew he was in it, but I mean, it's been a minute since I watched some of this before. But seeing Charlie Day just makes me happy because he's a funny guy. I like Charlie Day.
Yeah, and it's not Always Sunny Charlie, but it's the same energy. I feel
yeah, it's not a far cry.
No, but he's egghead Charlie.
Yeah.
So he's smart, but he's got that same like fucking vibe. So I really appreciate that.
And his cohort, Bern Gorman, looks like an actor that they've abducted from like the 40s or 50s and brought to today. And that's no disrespect to him. He just looks like an older timer actor.
No, if you put him in a 40s movie, what he would be is the guy he's the scientist that always wanted to be the hero Air Force pilot, but then he got polio.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, he's still the guy that saves the day.
That is exactly it. And you know what? Yeah. Weirdly, he's one of my favorite characters in the movie. I really like his character.
I did like him. I mean, he has an arc too, where him and Charlie are kind of rivals, but at the end of the day, he's like, okay, Charlie, I'm going to put my faith in you. We got to put these petty differences aside, right. Same as our countries are trying to do. We got to put these petty differences aside, and I'm going to drift with you Into the Mind of the Kaiju, which is it's a super cool kind of idea. And then, did you watch 2 as well? Have you seen 2, or did you watch it for this?
I have not watched 2.
Okay, so that's a big plot point for 2.
The drifting or the drifting with the kaiju?
Drifting with the kaiju.
Okay.
So there are some things that are apparently left behind from the drift from the original script. In the original script, Raleigh and Mako Mori were not going to speak the same language.
Yes, I loved that. I read that today,
and only was like, after drifting were they going to kind of be able to communicate.
Oh my god,
that was a kind of cool story.
That was a fucking cool idea. And I kind of understand it being like this big summer blockbuster popcorn kind of movie that maybe wouldn't work. That feels like too much of a in-depth kind of an idea for a popcorn movie, I think. But I love that idea. And then by the end they can understand each other. I thought that was a great thing that I would have absolutely loved that.
I can see where studios kind of balk, because 2013, like this is in that first wave of movies that are really going to try to specifically have something for that Asian audience.
Okay.
So I feel like this is in that first wave. Not to be too big a nerd, but when Big Hero 6 was 2014, so it kind of rode that same wave with and then Marvel movies really feed into that now, and that's a huge market if you get into China. Now this is more China adjacent, aka Japan.
We've lost our Japanese audience now, damn it, Dave.
Put him on the board. I'm gonna look at Hirohito. Put Emperor Hirohito on the board.
I'm gonna look at my news articles when I wake up tomorrow, and it's like podcast host decrees Japan as China adjacent.
And the picture under the headline is just me with a Halloween Horror Night glass full of Coke in one hand and a shot glass full of Woodford Reserve in the other, like a kind of.
You need to go make your social medias private till this blows over. Like any good celebrity, Dave. You black out. You black it all out, and then come back hot.
So celebrities blame exhaustion. It's exhaustion. I've been working too hard for the people.
Yeah. Oh, I was so tired. I started a sex cult, he said. Or they said, sorry. That's not I don't mean that as offensive as it sounded. I was really trying to be respectful to them.
To me or to sex cults?
To that loser.
Oh.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. He's just a flash in the pan.
But
or the other guy with the sex cult. Well, I don't know. They probably all Hollywood guys have a sex cult.
Now, the actress from Mako, another name. Why am I saying all these names? How would you pronounce this name? I'm leaving this up to you. Rinko?
Rinko Kikuchi? Which
that's about where I'd end.
Be careful with that one.
Yeah. Watching this whole movie, I thought for sure she was the actress that played Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh.
I was fucking sure of it.
Were you drunk?
No. But like the way she talked, and I know there's a lot of practical effects on Mantis, and I'm like, you know what? This is the actress that plays Mantis. And so when I'm, working up my horror house notes, I'm looking and
not finding.
I'm like, Babel, 47 Ronin, obviously Pacific Rim. Where in the fuck are you telling me her other movies are so much more popular than Guardians of the Galaxy that they're first? And then I get the slow realization that
You
Am
met
I
the wrong
racist?
person.
Am I racist that I
You
think?
are. Because the Mantis character is French. Like, the actress is French.
Yeah.
Clementif.
Yeah. I when I pulled her up and found her and then looked at them, I was like, I clearly see the error of my ways. They obviously don't look alike. But listen, the way she talked, and I just felt like, hey, we all make mistakes, right? Like I'm man enough to admit my mistake. But she was also another one of my favorite parts of the movie. I thought she was great. I thought she's a great actress.
I thought she was. I agree. I thought she was great.
I wish she had a better leading man to work with. I didn't really care for Charlie.
Oh, thank God. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I was really worried you were like Charlie Hunnam or however you say his name. Great job, Charlie. No, he's so fucking bland.
Yeah. I mean,
Charlie, I'm sure you're a great guy, but
I mean, they got several seasons. I didn't realize at first that he was the Sons of Anarchy guy, and that got several seasons with him being like the leading man. So
yeah, oh no, yeah, and I know several of the women I work with, Charlie, that you're never gonna be hurt. Like you're never gonna be. After that, you're never dry spelling, dude. But
I didn't realize that was
Pacific
him.
Rim was not your part. I think it's because
honestly,
everyone else is just a little over the top, like they're live action anime in this, and Charlie plays it a little straight.
And plus, his story is a little cliche, more than a little. He's doing that. I'm retired from that life. I ain't going back. Never mind, I'm back. How many times? I mean, we've seen it a million times, and I feel like that didn't help with his kind of straight man acting. But you know, he didn't do it for me. I don't know who I would have had in his place. But yeah, I feel like he was the kind of weakest character of the whole thing.
I don't disagree, and like I said, I think that part of it is everyone else really he plays it straight, and everyone else kind of hams it up just a little bit.
I will give him credit.
Idris Elba, I really like him as an actor, and I think the character is really good here. I'm not a big fan of the performance.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah, which is disappointing because he is such a imposing figure, but everyone else, like the dad and brother team,
or
the dad and son team, I thought they hammed it up good.
Yeah,
a character arc, exactly. And Charlie's just seemed so like you knew where we were headed, and Idris even too. You knew that the nosebleeds and everything.
Yeah,
I just always felt like you knew there was one.
I mean, he's the guy that's gonna risk it all, sacrifice it all. Like you knew, I felt like you knew pretty soon. I will say to his, I did mostly like him. I mean, he was pretty straight too. But overall, I was kind of okay with him and his character. I liked some of his interaction with Raleigh. I thought when they were interacting and kind of button heads, that was when Raleigh was better. And plus, I really love that he Raleigh's trying to, because after he drifts with Mako and it doesn't work out and all that chaos stuff, and then he's trying to figure out from Elbow, like, why won't you just let her fucking do it? And then he taps him on the shoulder or something. He's like, first off, don't touch me. Second, don't touch me. I was like, I really like that.
I mean,
I got a good laugh.
Idris is an imposing dude, and the character Stacker is an imposing character, so it's a good fit. I just think that I'm not even going to blame the actor. I'm going to blame the direction, which is hard to do because I love Guillermo del Toro so much, but I feel like you needed to tell him, like, I want you to go take this to 11. You know, chew the scenery a little bit more.
So I would compare Idris Elba in this movie to like a Bill Pullman of Independence Day. Like,
yeah. He has the speech too. Yeah,
but I don't think he reaches those same levels as Bill Pullman did.
That is such an epic speech. Like, if you played this speech right now, like, I'd be like, yeah, America, Earth, number one.
That was
so, yeah, and so this is a little bit. It's that same tone. This is exactly why I called it, you know, the Independence Day of kaiju films.
Yeah.
But it's not quite as good. I mean, the idea of today we canceled the apocalypse, like, that's pretty badass.
Yeah, I think they could have rolled with that line too. I don't know what their taglines were for Pacific Rim, but if they didn't use that, that's their marketing is very dumb.
I think it was specific rimming. You never know till you try it.
Today we tongue the apocalypse. Ba-da-da-ba-da-da. Oh God,
I'm gonna tongue punch that fart box.
Too far, Dave. Black out the socials.
I'm going hard in the paint tonight, man.
Oh man.
I feel like another underused actor was the ops guy, like the desk jockey, Clifton Collins Jr.
He's a guy I meant to look up and didn't. He reminds me so much of somebody else. And I don't...
a young Steve Buscemi?
Maybe? I don't think that's a far cry. And maybe it's a combination of Steve Buscemi and somebody else. But like
Steve Buscemi about him John Leguizamo. He's like right there.
That may be it.
He's kind of Big Lots John Leguizamo.
But yeah, I mean, I liked him, but at the same time, like this is the nerdy kind of comic-y kind of, you know, I mean, so he just wasn't very as endearing as I think he should have been, at least to me.
That's what I think. I mean, I think the actor is good, and I think that it was an underused character because you didn't need him as that kind of nerdy comic guy, because you have Charlie and Herman Gottlieb. You had them already, so you didn't need that there. So I really liked some of my favorite scenes were Charlie Day and Ron Perlman.
What did you think of? I liked when Charlie came back, or Newt came back after the kaiju attack, and he's like, "You owe me a brain," or I forget how he said it. "You owe me a goddamn brain." When he fully expected him to be fucking dead, and I really like that. Also, speaking of on this fact, Charlie Day fit in so well with all those Japanese people in that like shelter.
Yeah.
That I am partially convinced that Charlie Day is pretending to be American.
Oh.
I think he is a sleeper cell Japanese agent. Because even his clothes, he just fit in.
Undercover for Toyota. What can I say, man? I love me some Charlie Day. So, but it's a good character. It's I'm really working not to spoilerific specific rimming to more specific, more rimming. But do
you want to tell everybody why you're on the specific so much? And why we'll title the episode that?
If you haven't figured it out, like, we all know that person that every time they say the word specific, they actually say Pacific.
Wait, Dave, could you be more specific about that?
Can you be more Pacific? Uh,
I
I
don't understand.
specifically said that last week in our meeting, and so yeah, I'm riffing on you. I'm hacking on you a little bit, but
You're like
I got him.
that
I got
brings
him.
the eye roll, but without your eyes actually rolling. Like you feel the movement, but you're trying to be cordial and polite.
Yeah.
But like your whole back of your eyes just feels the motion, and you're like, fucking goddamn, that kind of a thing.
At work, and it's hard to believe I've made it 16 years without losing my job yet, because I'm the asshole that I won't call you out directly. What I'll do is I will say something so I can riff on your misspeak. The 100 comedy writers couldn't write something as good as one person saying something wrong one time. But when you call me out because I say something wrong one time, it's not quite as funny. So
shit, you're preaching to the choir right now. I'm the guy that recommended us, like, let's watch The Shortcut, and then for the last 4 years, Dave's like, hey, Shortcut man. I'm like, god damn it, Dave.
Have and overtaken, I believe, by Doom Asylum. So give it up.
What a shitty.
I have a whole nurse practitioner with I don't know 6 years of college education plus another probably 6 or 8 years of medical expertise. Runs a pain and addiction clinic, and this dude, and I hope you're listening, Josh, he is referred to as Baskin guy. So that's Baskin guy.
Does he know how absolutely terrified of him I am of him?
I'm not sure. I will let him know next week when he comes back from vacation.
Whenever you mention him, my butt is immediately clenched. I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen? Are we going to have to watch?
Baskin guy had a new suggestion for us. It's not a movie as much as it's just a real life snuff film.
Yeah, we meet in a cornfield, and then we're going to watch the snuff film. I'm like, okay. That's what I'm waiting on. It's not so much that your guts are being pulled out of you. It's when they put them back in is when it really sucks.
That's when it really gets you.
Getting back to specific rimming. What do you think of the CGI in this?
I thought it was solid. I feel like 2013 to now 2023, 10 years have passed. Thank you. I did pass elementary math. So we've talked about things like that, like things change so rapidly, but they change most rapidly in the infancy of industry. So maybe it's that 2013 to 2023 doesn't mean as much as 93 to 2003.
Exactly.
But I still feel like there's a lot of movies from 2013 that don't hold up as well.
Oh yeah. I agree.
So I feel like that they look good, and according to IMDb, they made about 100 different kaiju and Jaegers, and which, god damn it, Chris, why aren't we drinking Jaeger tonight? I know why, because I fucking hate Jaeger.
I've never tried it, believe it or not. I've still never tried it. And really? Oh god.
Yeah.
Like all the old Metallica stories always made me want to try it, but I still have yet to try it. Anyways,
I'm at the point where I could drink it right now. So just saying.
Now for me, the CGI, I mean, it reminds me of like trying to watch like Transformers. Like for a lot of it, like there's this just heaps of action. And I'm like, I'm having a hard time keeping up with some of it. And I gotta say, I'm an old man and I'm set in my ways, and I would rather watch stop motion. But
yeah, I mean, I love me some stop motion.
Yeah, I don't think that would really work in a summer blockbuster movie at this point ever, probably. but like some kind of shots to like really imply the solidity of the objects, I think maybe would have helped me get there. But to me, the best that it looked was the out of water shots, like that big the big fight, like in the middle with the three Jaegers and the two kaiju, and when they finally move it towards land, the gypsy and that EMP monster, who I forget their name.
Yeah.
I thought that looked great, but when they're in the water, for some reason, it looked less great to me. And maybe, but that's because of the water. I don't know, but
I think what it is, and this is just my opinion. It's not so much the water; it's that filmmaking has a shared language, right? I think we can all agree there. There's like a certain shared language with pop culture and entertainment in general.
okay.
And so, uh, um, when you design for the current thing is like we want these fantastical monsters, but we want them to look like they could actually exist. So these kaiju have to meet certain standards. Like you can't have this giant bulbous head and a tiny pin body. No one would fucking believe that shit. So that I know that's the extreme example. So don't call me on that. I'm just using that as an extreme example.
That's also copywritten Horrorhouse 2023.
Sure. So when you make things with a shared language and a shared visual language, and then you're making it so that it seems grounded, it's hard to really differentiate because like were you going to make these monsters like colorful? Like the Jaegers are where you're going to get the color from, and they pay such homage in this to like World War II. So even Gypsy Avenger is not named for gypsies; it's named for the engines from specific Pacific World War II fighters. Like that's where that name comes from. It's not a reference to the Roma people of Eastern Europe. And so you're not going to have the color for colorful stuff. Like like Power Rangers, you can have the colors, and really they benefit from that wild color palette. Where in reality, or the pseudo reality of Hollywood, like if I want to make this monster evil, he's got to be dark and gray, and so you end up with a lot of that color palette wise. There's not a lot of differentiation, and then the style of filmmaking is not it likes close-ups and fast cuts.
Yes, absolutely.
So I don't think that helps because it shows a lot going on in a short amount of time, so it can kind of trick your brain into, wow, this is action packed, when I honestly think you would do more with less of those cuts and show some actual stuff, which is where I would love Hollywood to really pull in some of these old school Hong Kong guys. Why isn't Jackie Chan and Guillermo del Toro teaming up with shit, and Jackie as a choreographer, so we can have extended fight scenes that don't rely on
every
quick cuts,
half a second? Yes, that's so annoying, and they do. I did notice that a lot in this. Dude, even as far back as a Kiss fan, right? Like I would get like in the early 2000s, they would release like a concert DVD, right? And they had this weird thing then of just cuts, like every second, half second. You're like, I can't enjoy this because you're trying to make something frantic that's not frantic. This doesn't make sense for what you're doing. And that was a big complaint I had of Kiss concert DVDs for a decade and a half at least. And I still notice it, and noticed it in this. That also said, there's a lot of almost wrestling in this that I really wish.
Yeah.
Like, there was a moment when Gypsy grabbed that. I think it was the EMP monster. Maybe it was a different one. Maybe it was the last one. I forget the name of the last one. But like, I swear to God, I thought they were gonna suplex them. And I'm like, give me this. This is fucking rad right now. And then it wasn't. And I'm like,
but there was the coolest. The body slams were ridiculous because when I saw those, my thought was, okay, this is a giant fucking beast, and you basically just threw him into the pool. Like, did you really think throwing this thing into the ocean was going to cause any damage to it?
Right.
But I mean, the one scene was really cool where the Jaeger like jumps up and then flips around and uses the rockets to get the momentum and kind of fucking flings him over his head. Mm-hmm. It was a really cool move if you slam him into something. Or you threw him to the next Jaeger who could fucking punch him out of the air. Like, you could have done more with that. And, you know, like I said, you know how I feel about fucking kung fu movies. Mm-hmm. Bring back some of this old kung fu shit. And just give it that modern taste. But the actual fights where you could actually see what is going on, I think you would
less cuts.
Be seen. Yeah, I think you'd be seen as like groundbreaking, even though you're not really breaking ground. You're going back to old ways.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely agree. 110%.
And a lot of times these days, like for this, I feel like they're copying the modern style because with so much CGI, I don't think you needed to do that. But the modern style is, you know, I put Matt Damon, who's not a fucking I put him into a movie, and so to show a fight with him, to show, you know, 3 punches with him, I have to have 10 cuts to hide the fact that he's not a martial artist.
That's like the who was it? The what's the Taken guy? What's his name? Liam Neeson. There's literally, I forget which Taken it is. But I remember watching back in the day, they're like, there was 14 cuts for this of him jumping over this fence in Taken 2 or whatever.
Yes.
And it lasts like a second of him jumping over this fence, but there's like 13, 15, 20 cuts. It's absolutely ridiculous and absolutely highlights that there's just too much cuts. And they're trying to keep this action going when there doesn't need to be this action going constantly for mundane stuff like that. Like if the Jaeger and the kaiju are just throwing fists at each other, you don't need to cut to every punch that is hitting. Pull back a little bit and show them beat the shit out of each other. Yes. I mean, you can get creative with angles and you can move the camera. You don't have to be a static camera for these kinds of things. Like, could you imagine a shot that started like behind the Jaeger, and as they're like throwing fists at each other's fucking faces, it just pans around the whole perimeter behind the kaiju now, and now it's back, like the whole, and it doesn't have to be on this plane, this level plane. It could go up or down or whatever, and that would just add more flavor to it, and not one cut would have to be had. But there is some reason that it just feels like cuts like this are so fucking overdone. And that
and to be clear, we're not the first ones saying that.
Oh no. I forgot how passionate I was about this. I didn't even have it in my notes, but I'm very glad you brought it up.
Yeah, no, this is one of the things that irritates me with.
Yes.
Like even I love the fucking Marvel movies, man, and they do too much of this shit. So,
they have,
everybody does. It's really modern style.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. And you know, thinking of that, you know, CG where it was then, 10 years ago. Not that it's a whole lot different by this point. Maybe that was in part to hide some of the CG.
Could be, could be.
Because maybe those static
worst
stuff didn't work for that.
Yeah, the worst CG I felt like was not even the monsters; it was the cockpit stuff.
It was very like Iron Man, but like junky Iron Man, like his helmet HUD. You know what I mean? That's what that kind of reminded me of. Well, maybe not the cockpit, but like at HQ when they would like monitor the stuff going on, monitoring the Jaegers and stuff. It's like they're running out of oxygen. Those kind of effects I thought were rough. I mean, better than I would ever do, surely, but yeah. I mean, some of that stuff is it, okay. Pacific Rim 2. Are the cuts any different? How do you feel about that in the sequel? That's the only thing I want to know. Better, worse, or does it stick out in your brain in one way or the other?
They're the same. Like, so
just more of the
it's very, you can only go two ways, like with the sequel. Rarely are you staying on the same level of production. You either have there are plenty of times where the sequel is better production because you have more budget and more time and more leeway because you've proven yourself with the first one, or you've proven yourself with the first one and the studio says we don't need to invest as much because we got the name recognition now.
Right.
And so the second one I really feel falls into that second category. Really? But really the fights are fine. The CGI is fine. Maybe it's a little bit less. My biggest thing is a little bit of the story and the plot. It's more of the same. The plot is different. Like it's not just kaiju coming from the breach. There's a little more intrigue. There's a little more things going on. But even though you added those elements, you didn't successfully change the tone of what's going on. So the second one is definitely a downgrade for me, but it's still worthwhile. It does have John Boyega, so Finn from the Star Wars.
Is he the replacement black man? Is that what that is?
Yeah. So
racist, guys. This may be the Chris is racist episode, but I swear to God, I'm not. That's just the hands I've been dealt. So leave me alone. I gotta have to black out my socials.
Maki Mori was like Stacker Pentecost had adopted her. So that was his adopted daughter because her family was killed in a kaiju attack, so he takes her in. Did it ever mention him having a son? Because I don't remember it. And then all of a sudden in the sequel, he's got a son.
John Boyega. Interesting.
And the son gets the speech in the second one.
Okay.
It's just the speech ain't as good.
Maybe they felt bad because he was getting shafted in Star Wars.
He did get shafted in Star Wars, man. I wanted to see him really do something.
My favorite thing about those is not even the movies. I hated fucking the middle one. I've never even watched the last one. But
middle one's better than the last one.
Is him in interviews, like the press junkets after those movies, and he just doesn't really give much of a shit. And he's like, meh. Like they fly now. And he's like, they've been flying since the Clone Wars. And he's one of the few people that's like, I don't care. I don't want to go back to Star Wars. I'm done. Like they did what they were going to do with him, and I'm good. And respect for that. I like that.
The sequel trilogy. not to go. Welcome for the ride, Rabble. If this is your first time, like you never know where we're going to go. Who knew we were? This is going to be episode 1 of the Star Wars podcast. The sequel trilogy, like the first one was great. It was so much nostalgia and fan service, but it really was telling the original trilogy story in one movie with new characters. So it really was that. But then what the fatal mistake I really believe they made is they tried to take all of the feedback and put that into 2 and make everybody happy. And you can't. Just make your shit, and the people who get happy are happy, and the people who... You're not going to make everybody happy. Like, that doesn't happen these days.
With a fan base as big as Star Wars, it's impossible. But you know,
I'm convinced there are Star Wars fans who don't like any of the Star Wars movies.
Dude, so, I know Kiss fans. I know Kiss fans by fucking first name that I swear to God never liked Kiss. It's any fandom. I think that's a thing that you encounter.
I believe it. I would say the original trilogy is pretty safe for most Star Wars fans. Like, if they like it, that's what they like. But some of them don't like anything like that. But some of them don't seem to like that. And they're not as bad as Star Wars fans. There are Star Wars fans that like, yeah, the really only thing I like is season 2, episode 12. And that's the only one I really like. But I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
Yeah. That fandoms, I think that really has to do with the longevity of a franchise. And then that's when you get the infighting amongst fans. You're like, why are you're not a fucking fan? Like, I had arguments with Kiss fans when they're like, I don't like when Kiss tries to play harder rock. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then you think back to like certain things, and it's the same for Star Wars or Star Trek or anything that's lasted for decades. And certain flavors of what that was at a point reflects back, and you're like, I guess I understand why you don't like before or after that period, but at the same time, you are a fucking weirdo, and I don't want to know you, but
it's a losing game. Like, so I will admit, like, Loaded Reloaded came out. They were not my favorite shit, Metallica shit, but they have grown on me. Like, they have grown on me. The new shit this year, it's not grown on me yet. I don't know that I can give it a chance. But Hardwired, I kind of liked Hardwired.
That one took me, when that come out, like 2016. It took me till last year before, and I mean, it's not like I was listening to it every couple weeks to try to make it click, but like last year at some point, I really liked that. The new one, I'll be honest, I've not even listened to the new Metallica album. I've listened to the singles that they put out, but
yeah, I listened to a couple of singles. The first one that came out, I liked. Like, I've listened to that maybe 10 times. But then the second one came out, and the things that come out after that, I'm really like,
same.
I'm just not liking it.
Exactly.
But it's a no-win situation if you're an artist.
But
because if you stay the same, people are like, oh, it's just the same shit. But then if you grow, people are like, oh, give us the classic shit. Why are you changing? Like, why are you sold out because you changed? No, we grew as artists, and we're trying something new. Typo Negative, like, really reinvented themselves with every fucking album. And so you have Typo Negative fans that are hardcore rabid over one album and nothing else. So
yeah.
Fucking weird.
And I mean, anything, I mean, that kind of goes back to, I mean, there's only a handful of bands, and I think the amount of movies that fall into that same category that have had a franchise that has lasted several decades. And honestly, I'll need some help on this because I'm no cinephile that knows all this, but for me, the only series of movies that last decades that I feel like held up and I was there for is Clerks, is Kevin Smith.
Okay.
And he certainly fell off for me for like the 2010s. I didn't like most of anything he did. But then Clerks 3 comes out and I'm like, this is absolutely what I wanted for this. And I meant like Tony Todd is now following you. Kevin Smith liked one of my tweets once. Just liked it. Didn't comment, didn't fucking do anything else. But I felt like, oh wow. Like he knew that this affected what he created affected me. And I cried like a fucking bitch during Clerks 3. I ugly cried in front of my wife. And I feel like she's going to judge me until the day I die because of that. One way or the other. But anything that lasts that long, to have a reaction like that to this thing, I mean, what more could you really ask for that? And to go back, to bring this back to Pacific Rim, in a way, like Godzilla started in the 50s, and it's still, I mean, you have at least a couple Godzilla movies, whether they're Toho or American, um, every decade, at least a couple. And certainly some are better than others. But when something has had that much longevity, at a certain point, you can't really, and I think this applies to everything we've been talking about, you can't really say, well, I'm a fan of just this specific era. You have to just say, I'm a fan of this. Because it's lasted for so long, I don't feel like saying that you're a fan of just this works.
Really, like, you're not really a fan at that point. You like a specific item.
Yeah. It's like, I like this one Kiss album where they did disco. Well, then you're not a Kiss fan. I like Son of Godzilla, and that's it. Well, then you're not really a Godzilla fan. You're a Son of Godzilla fan.
Yeah, with good taste. You are a person with good taste.
And I think the main thing with these big franchises, we've went off on a franchise tangent, but I mean, who knows? I mean, this is the first decade of Pacific Rim. Like, who knows where this could possibly go in the future? Are they even talking about a third one? I know they've done some animated things or comic things. I'm not.
Yeah, there's both. There's been some graphic novel and some comic books and animated, but it is primed. Like, you know, you get the tag at the end of a movie that says, "Oh yeah, they're setting up for another one." Pacific Rim specifically, Pacific Rim could have a third trilogy with very little effort. Like the plot is even set up, like not plot, maybe the premise is set up.
Do you think it's deserved?
So it's there for the taking,
or do you think it's just placed in to be like, well, if we make enough movie, then we're safe to go, kind of that way, or is it? You know what I mean? How do you
I feel like once the current series of Godzilla movies came out, because that was right after Pacific Rim.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think you're right.
So I felt like once they started to get their foothold,
right,
then it detracted. I feel like it having multiple kaiju series at a time going on turns out is not a benefit, because I don't think kaiju movies speak to people the way they used to.
Yeah.
So you know, people have the Godzilla versus King Kong, the current series going on. I don't think they can hold that in their head and hold Pacific Rim in their head.
But I mean,
as two separate entities and kind of juggle them at the same time. So
yeah. So, but then you have both those, right? But then you have like people like us that like to see those kind of like more akin to a dude in a suit. I wouldn't say prefer that. Maybe me more than you in some regards to that. Like I would rather see practical in that regard, but I feel like you're more okay with
I'm with
some
you.
of the
I'm with you.
CGI. But like I feel like you've got a foot in both words, I should say. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you. But I mean, and then what happens to those people? I mean, at one point, Toho was kind of your saving grace, but I know that they also have kind of leaned more into the CGI. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for next week, and we're gonna have a catching up episode. What we've been up to. Dave has a lot of Halloween Horror Nights stuff to catch us up on, and we're gonna talk more in depth on Godzilla Minus One. But I feel like we're safe, especially now how we went off on such a tangent to talk about it a little bit now.
Sure.
And having this kind of Toho very big and destructive and set piece of a Godzilla movie from Toho, which is interesting.
I was at work, Chris, when you texted me and said, "Hey, this has dropped. You need to check it out." And I did. I had new hires, and I stopped mid point and sent them on break so I could watch the Godzilla Minus One trailer. And then as soon as I got home, I made Jackie sit down with me and watch it. It is. It's a teaser trailer, so there's effective. Not a lot there. Yeah. But it looks like it's kind of back to the kind of fatter, like bulkier Godzilla. What little I saw is shown looks like the bulkier Godzilla. Uh-huh. It looks like a heavy emphasis on destruction. It is set after World War II, after the bombs have been dropped on Tokyo and Nagasaki. And so I do have questions about, like, is Godzilla gonna, like, what are we back to the original Godzilla roots where Godzilla was not a good guy?
Right.
Right. You know, that came later when he became such a national icon. Even though he was wreaking havoc. Well,
before we get to our overall opinions for Pacific Rim, I want to real quick, because I think this is perfect. And it will lead also us into next week episode for us catching up on everything outside of Horror House, but still a lot of in the genre stuff. Dave, and I'll answer it after you. Favorite kaiju movie? And I know this, but tell the world.
I do think it is specifically Pacific Rim.
There you have it. I knew this. I knew this going in. I set you up.
Because because it has everything. You know, it has the mech suits that I love. It has the story. I like the uplifting. Like, everything doesn't have to be dire, and even though the speech is, it's kind of cheesy. It's not quite as epic as the Independence Day speech, but it is.
Don't go too hard. Don't go too hard. Save it for your overall.
It is. It is a rousing speech, and so I think Pacific Rim. If it's not that, it's Cloverfield. But I do think Pacific Rim takes it for me.
Now we're kind of informing each other.
What's your favorite?
Exactly. We're kind of informing each other, giving some little bit of hints on what our guesses for each other's rating will be by this question. For me, my favorite kaiju movie it's very akin to you, a little more modern than that even, if you can believe it, is Shin Godzilla.
Okay.
And I think I've talked to you a little bit about Shin Godzilla. And I'm not like a huge Godzilla fan. I've not seen everything. I've not seen a majority of things. I wouldn't even say I've seen a quarter of Godzilla movies, but Shin Godzilla.
God damn, how could you? There's so many.
Yes, I would really like to dive into that, but it's expensive. um, but Shin Godzilla goes back to that. Godzilla is a natural disaster, and there ain't nothing you can do about a natural disaster except endure, at least. And that's kind of my favorite kind of a kaiju is this entity, almost Lovecraftian, where you know he could be stomping buildings, and you're like, there are people in there. He doesn't even fucking know what a people is, so why does it care? It's just this path of destruction.
It's indifference to human suffering.
Exactly, and that is what a big part of. Plus, there's a lot of satire in Shin Godzilla, where you know the Japanese government is like, okay, we need to figure out what's going on, but not in this room. Let's go to this other conference room, and then they go to this conference room, and they're like, you know what, this one ain't quite right either. Let's go to this other room, and it's like, you know, there's a fucking giant monster just devastating. There's stuff like that in Shin Godzilla where it's, and plus to me, Shin Godzilla brings a good bit of the horror, but the natural kind of disaster for a kaiju does it for me, and that's
it is a taller, slimmer Godzilla. I mean, just physically. It looks like is it more practical? Like I've not seen Shin.
There I think is a good portion of practical in Shin, but still there is CGI in Shin Godzilla. But I think at least at the time Shin Godzilla was the biggest Godzilla.
Okay. They mix it up, so instead of having like a purple glow for his powers, or instead of having a blue glow, it looks like Shin has a purple glow, which is totally different than what other Godzillas have done.
Yeah, well, I'm sure within the next couple seasons we will do Shin Godzilla because I loved it so much, and I love that iteration. Plus he has some evolution going on. You don't see him as that, which is also cool. But there's that. I don't want to get too deep on that. How about we hit a break? We will come back. Unless anything else you want to say on specific rimming before we hit our overalls, Dave?
No, if you've never tried the rimming, I suggest you give it a try, and it's maybe something you like. But let's hit a break, and we'll come back and talk about that more in depth.
You ain't ever know till you tried, because I needed to say it like that.
Hey, I'm just right along for the ride with you. I'm like, okay, that fits.
We are back. It is time to rate this bitch. I'm gonna go first since this was Dave's pick. For me, Pacific Rim, I'm gonna do something a little bit different, and I'm gonna tell you my number immediately, Dave, and then explain it.
Okay.
So, for me, I'm giving this a 6.
Okay.
And I hope I don't break your heart. I'm sorry if I do.
No. I think this is an important lesson. We don't all have to like the same things. That's why it's great that there's so much variety of stuff out. And 6 is, I say that 6 is not a bad score.
I just knocked over on my Budweiser cans. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I mean it's above average still. But there are things that drag this down for me, and we've pretty much hit on all of them, so I don't really gotta explain. But like too much human story shit. We want the fucking fights and stuff. And plus it's very cliche in a lot of parts.
There is that. I think that adds to it for me. So sorry.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. And I get that it can't all be, kaiju versus Jaeger. That's, but then to carry on with that.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that?
Are you sure?
It can't all be? You sure about that?
I wish, but they say that it can't be. So that's just what I assume.
Okay.
And for me, and this is Chris Core. Too much just CGI for me. I would love some more, and I should say too much fast cuts as well. In addition to that, um, I wish I would love some fucking full ass models, you know, to get some real scale. I feel like scale is something kind of missing from this. Um, but yeah, I liked it, but I mean, will I revisit it? I don't know that it's going to end up in my Blu-ray collection, but I wouldn't be against watching it again. And I think that's a pretty decent place to live. And that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. So I my guess for you was a little bit higher than that. I guessed a 7, which is actually only it's pretty normal because we're usually about a point apart. And I did rate an 8. I the cliches is fine with me. The human story in this is fine with me because of the suits, because of the Jaegers. Like that puts us on some even ground. Where like the fucking current Godzilla series is like, no, we can defeat the monsters with the power of friendship and love. And it's like, no, give me some fucking mech suits.
Right.
So, I'm there. There are some, like, talking about it has made me consider losing an extra half, but I didn't. I wanted to stay true to what I rated before we started talking.
I do that at every fucking episode where I'm like, this is it. But by the end of our conversation, I swear to God, almost every episode I go up or down at least a half a point. So ain't no nothing wrong with that.
If I was moving based on what we talked about tonight, I'd move down to 7.5 because there is an over reliance of CG, and like I said, I think the worst part is the cockpit stuff. The quick cuts, I think that's modern, like action filmmaking. So, I don't really want to. I don't want to count it against it when it is the current like trend. Yeah, am I taking every movie of this generation down that extra half? You know, I mean that because that would be the solution.
Fair.
There are 2 is definitely not as good a movie, but 2 brings into like I don't feel like this is spoiling anything. The mechs have like fucking swords and weapons that are much more unique. Like he has and they have fists and sometimes chest missiles and
sword,
like the plasma cannon, but not the way the new one had. Like that, it's more of a device. It's more of a it's plays more of a role. So it's better that way. The swords and one of the in the second one has like a giant like mace attached to his hand. So there's more uniqueness to the weapons because otherwise, like the different mechs, they do a pretty good job of like you can look at the different mechs and see that they're all different. They all have different things.
Yeah, I noticed that from the poster art. Like there's like 3 solidly different mechs, which I thought was cool.
which is just kudos. You know, I don't want to see them all looking the same. So I'm going to stand by. I said an 8 brings us to an average score of 7, which is a solid score.
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
that is fair. I drug it down like I tend to do.
Well, and I, hyped it up more. You know, I'm the hype man. I'm the moving hype man for the show. So that's okay. We have our roles.
Hey,
we're we're a little further apart than usual today.
A little bit.
But that's okay. The show will go on.
If they want to tell us their ratings, which we would love to see, all you got to do, Tell them, Dave. Tell them.
You can tell us your ratings. You can tell us what your favorite kaiju movie is. You could do that with a direct message or just tagging us in a tweet at Sweetness1 with 6 E's or at Horror House 2 because there are 2 of us.
Usually. You can email us horrorhousepodcast@gmail.com or go to the Horror House page on Facebook.
You can hit us up on Slasher, Horror House Dave, or Horror House Chris. The social media website for horror fans. So
specifically for horror fans. Get it.
Specifically for horror fans, yes.
And last but not least, do rate us wherever you're listening, whatever platform, whatever app. We super duper appreciate it. Because Spotify ain't helping us out none. But if you're listening on Spotify, click the stars. Click the heart, please. Please. Let the Spotify overlords know that we're here. Because I feel like they are forgetting about us smaller guys. And last but not least,
that's what they like.
Yeah.
They like to see those likes and those clicks and those views attached to our show. So.
And again, if you know somebody that would like the Horror House, that would like the old Chris and Dave back and forth, let them know. And you can do that by sharing. Sharon is Karen. Unless Sharon is your wife. And then yeah.
You know, it's like Ozzy said, Sharon!
Fucking Bubbles? You gave the fucking Prince of Darkness Bubbles? That's one of the, I'll never forget that. The Osbournes. Holy shit. But this was a tangent episode. Not the most extreme as I thought it was going to be, but we did pretty good, Dave. I'm proud of us. We did pretty good.
Yeah. Considering how hard I pregame tonight, we're doing all right.
I was expecting Beyond They Live. And no, we did.
This doesn't deserve like my full on like hardcore Super Bowl. I'm not on Super Bowl level.
Oh man. Oh, stay tuned next week. We will be doing a catching up episode on some stuff we've been watching outside of the show, amongst other things. But until then, we will see you then. Same cemetery, different grave.